That brings to mind something. People often say, "Gosh, I had a little stove fire at my condominium, and all these fire engines showed up in Walnut Creek." Could you just let the audience know on a standard structure fire what is the classic response for con fire to that?
So we follow national standards that are published by the National Fire Protection Association for what's called an effective firefighting force. And essentially an effective firefighting force is roughly 15 firefighters from the incident commander, if you will, the chief officer who's there, all the way down to the firefighter that's on the end of the hose line. And that effective firefighting force is not just an arbitrary number. There's a variety of different tasks and positions that need to be filled to create a safe environment to work in under what is obviously an unsafe condition, meaning that there's a building on fire. So our standard response to a structure fire is typically 4 engines and a ladder truck with the addition of 2 chief officers that respond as well. And that initial first alarm response can be reduced or increased depending on the severity of the incident, but that is our standard that we send. Again, shifting from the focus of wildland fires and putting an overwhelming force together to structure fires, the concept is that you absolutely want to have at least as much, if not more, resources than you think you need so that you can quickly put the fire out in a safe manner, while also being mindful of the fact that every structure fire that we go to, the first priority is rescue. The first priority is life. And most structures obviously are inhabited at some point during the day or night. So our first mindset is that when we're responding to a structure fire is that we have a potential rescue. And the potential rescue is there until it's confirmed that it's not. So because of that, we staff those first alarm assignments accordingly because there is a lot of risk involved. And there's a lot of work to do.
I see. Speaking of that, we're several people have sent me a little chat talking about how the con fire is financed, and with that in mind, I want you to talk a little bit. Just give us a little thought about that, but also the issues in East Contra Costa County, 7 stations down to 3 now, and then keeping all that in mind, the potential for con fire taking on that East County. So I know that's a lot to talk about, but
sure. Yeah, so it's actually in Contra Costa County, it's fairly simple for the fire protection districts. Contra Costa County is a little unique in as much that fire protection districts are the norm in Contra Costa County versus city fire departments. So within Contra Costa County, there are only 3 city fire departments, the Richmond, El Cerrito, and Pinole fire departments. Everything else is covered by a fire district. Fire district's like a school district. It doesn't really follow, city boundaries necessarily. It's its own governmental entity with its own specified revenue source. And within Contra Costa County, the revenue source for fire protection districts is rather simple. It's a percentage of the ad valorem property tax. The challenge with revenue for fire protection districts goes back to Prop 13 in 1978, where prior to 1978, a fire chief, if you will, or a board of directors could set their tax rate based on whatever was going on that year. If we're going to build a new station, we need money to build the station, we'll set the taxes high to pay for that. And when we get done with that, we'll bring them back down. So Prop 13, one of the many things that it did was to fix permanently whatever your tax rate was. The problem is that tax rate was fixed at whatever that was at that point in time in 1978. So for Contra Costa County Fire, our average is about 14 cents of the ad valorem dollar goes to Contra Costa County Fire. Now that's an average. Some areas it's higher and some areas it's lower, but that's an average. In East Contra Costa Fire, they're sort of the poster child, if you will, for what Prop 13 didn't fix. or the unintended consequences of Prop 13, their average is something like 5 or 6 cents on every ad valorem dollar, which probably was fine back in 1978 when it was very small, tiny communities, a volunteer workforce, and the rest of it was ag land. But now, as you probably all know, it's been growing significantly. So the growth provides additional revenue, but the rate of revenue stays the same at roughly 5 or 6 cents on every ad valorem dollar. So for currently, we actually finished our budget. We're required to have our budget in by the end of January of the year. Our current budget is $162 million for Contra Costa County Fire, and then another $53 million for the ambulance program. By contrast, East Contra Costa Fire's budget is about $18.5 million. So they're about the 10th the size of what we are. What we're looking at right now, based on the fact that despite COVID, and given the fact that property taxes are the primary means of revenue for fire protection districts, and as you all know, the real estate market is not going backwards. It's probably going forwards at a bit of a too hot of a pace, but nonetheless, the circumstances are not like they were back in 2008, 2009 or so. We are looking at the feasibility or into the feasibility of annexing the East Contra Costa Fire Protection District as well as the Rodeo Hercules Fire Protection District out west. And the reason why we're doing this is because by putting these agencies together, we feel that there is a current revenue stream that would support Contra Costa County Fire being able to put additional resources out in East Contra Costa Fire. With $18.5 million of revenue, we have forecast that we believe we could put 5 stations out in the Brentwood Oakley area, whereas East Contra Costa Fire right now, as a standalone agency, is only able to do 3. You might say, well, how does that work? Well, there's a lot of efficiencies that we're hoping to gain. They won't have to have a fire chief. They won't have to be purchasing as many apparatus. They won't have to be doing a lot of things that we already have in place to be able to support that area. So the feasibility study is underway. We anticipate no later than June having the final report with hopefully a rough draft in the month of April that will give us some indication about the feasibility. Additionally, if you've heard about Measure X, the half-cent sales tax, the countywide sales tax, one of the major issues that supported Measure X was to give some funding to sustain and increase fire protection and EMS services within the county. So we are hopeful that the Board of Supervisors will look towards supporting annexation and consolidation with some Measure X dollars to fill in any financial gaps that there may be, whether they're current or anticipated into the future. But really, the overall goal of annexation is to create consistency and efficiency, bring to bear whatever economies of scale we can in order to increase the amount of resources that are available to the system, whether it's in Brentwood or Walnut Creek or out in Hercules or Rodeo.
Thanks. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. I do want to an interesting thing that comes up is what is the standard response time, let's say in Walnut Creek, to get a call and respond to a structure fire, and then kind of compare, because I was reading about a significant structure fire a couple of years ago out in Bethel Island, and it was 15 minutes before the first engine arrived out there because of the issues you're talking about, limited resources.
So our average travel time to a structure fire is around a little over 5 minutes. And the average turnout time, if you will, the time it takes from the bells and whistles that go off in the station to the time that the engine is moving is around 2 minutes. So it's around 7 minutes total for that first fire engine to get there. One of the things that we enjoy in Walnut Creek and Concord area is the fact that while it may be 7 or so minutes for the first engine to arrive, the second and third engines or ladder trucks are only a minute or 2 behind that. So there's that effective firefighting force that very quickly ends up arriving at the scene, particularly after that first unit. When you get out into more rural and remote areas, response times are challenging just based on the logistics, whether it's the roadway network or the distance from fire stations. Bethel Island had a fire station on the island itself that was staffed. It was shut down in, I'll say, 2010 as a result of the recession. There has been a brand new fire station built in Oakley, just a stone's throw from Bethel Island. And that station was built with funds based on all the development and growth in Oakley. And that station is what we are hoping to be able to staff come March of next year, so March of 22. And that station would dramatically reduce the response time to Bethel Island, as well as that area of Oakley that eventually will end up with houses all around it. They've already started. I drove out there a couple of weeks ago because I hadn't been out there in years, and it was amazing to see how many houses are going up out there in Oakley. If it's flat ground, it looks like eventually it's going to have a house on it.